some of the letters and the writings that I've done over the last 4 years or so as a headmaster. And again and again and again, I've been telling people we need to prepare not girls. I think that's wonderful. I'm not in the habit that I see all kids as girls. Where we're educating young people and trying to educate young people for a future that's unpredictable, disrupted, and requiring completely out-the-box thinking. And it's all been theory, really, because we know that's coming for us, a very different world. And guess what? It has now arrived. So this opportunity to learn and is preparing us for that future that we are facing. And it's very exciting. So tonight I'm going to start by asking Dr. Gaines and Mr. Holderness to speak a little bit to us. We're going to repeat a little bit of what we've already said, but in the meantime, we've refined some of the thinking and the timetables and so on. So I think the timetable is a very good visual to start with, because it shows us what our day will look like, what the day job how that will be structured. And from there, we can sort of ask all the questions around the practicalities around that. And so I'm going to just ask Dr. Gaines to talk us through that. Mr. Holderness can come in and talk about how the boarding and day girl thing will work in response to that timetable and the program, the week program and so on. And then let's answer questions from you, practical questions, to see whether we can learn a little bit more. So I'm going to share my screen now and ask Dr. Gaines to talk us through the timetable. So at the webinar, she had that fun slide up. I don't know whether you remember. It wasn't an actual timetable, but she was talking about the sort of principles of the timetable, where what we're trying to achieve is for you girls who come back to campus to have a really rich experience during the day, where you don't just sit staring to a screen the whole time, where you get up and you go to different activities, online activities and in-class activities on the sports fields, and to get as much normality as possible. So what the final timetable looks like, therefore, is this. So Dr. Gaines, fire away, and if you will give me permission to chip in every now and again.
Yes, you're welcome to do that. Oh, it's echoing a bit from my side, but I think it's okay. So good evening, parents. Let me just get rid of this cat. Sorry, he is known as Kling for a reason. There we go. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're refining this timetable. This is version 5 now, and we're still trying to work out where everybody is going to end up in terms of class by class timetabling. But the overall day will be a staggered breakfast start, followed by or preceded by perhaps an outrun, or maybe a quick music lesson or something like that, if it allows. And then we head into the day with a later start. We want to start with later in the day because that is what teenagers want. Your hormones haven't quite balanced out yet, and so you generally are more awake later in the morning. So to accommodate that, we're starting our online lessons at 9 o'clock. So those online lessons, there are 3 of them instead of 4 that we had now. We're just doing away with the period 1 that we had at the moment. We're restructuring that. And followed by that, we'd like to intersperse it with a bit more active learning rather than just sitting in front of the screen from 8 o'clock until 1 o'clock. So 2 hours of online learning, 2 classes, a nice long tea break, allowing day girls to come in perhaps for the tutorial sessions, which are planned from about 11:15 until 1. Those tutorial sessions are face-to-face lessons with your teachers. They're in pink on the timetable. And that is when you get access to your teachers. So if you're a boarder, you would definitely be at that session. That is a compulsory session for you so that you can catch up, ask your questions. It's a support class. It might be please go through that example again, or actually I'm having trouble with this, or maybe there's some time to do some prac skills or something like that. Your teachers will guide you there. And then leading into lunchtime, a staggered lunch. Again, we have to bubble that. and then an online lesson in the afternoon heading into either a club or a sport or a cultural activity. And then you have a staggered supper as a border, a prep time as normal, and then roll call and hot chocolate. This has evolved, this timetable, over many, many versions. And we think that this is close to the final. And during those tutorial sessions is when you are the focus. The girl in the class is the focus. Whereas in the online session, the class on an online platform is the focus. We're also allowing teachers who wish to or can come into school to give those online lessons in the classrooms that the girls are in. So if the boarder chooses to have an online lesson, perhaps in a classroom, or maybe she's invited to be in the classroom for that session, then the Zoom lesson would take place with the girls physically present. And then if at the end of the Zoom lesson there are any questions, those boarders can ask those questions of the teacher. But
and they girls actually who are on campus.
Those that are on campus, yeah. The boarders can also be in their rooms during that time if that's where you would work best. But the classrooms will be available to you. And I don't know if it's worth Mr. de Villiers just showing them the classroom blocks so that they can get an idea of the sort of 5 different schools on campus. There will be houses associated with classroom blocks, as indicated, for example, in blue. Espen House would be in upper level of Hudson Block. The girls who are staying in Merriman House, whatever that grade bubble is, will be in the lower level of Hudson Block, and so on. So the teachers will be moving around. You won't be. Those will be your base. You're welcome to work in the boarding house or in the classrooms. Day girls will only be allowed to work in the classrooms and not frequent the boarding space. We also have some flexible prac spaces to allow you to have sciences and drama and French lessons perhaps in the Karnak block. So that is the overall gist of your day, a nice interspersed day with not too much online activity. It's interspersed with face-to-face lessons. Would you like to add anything, Mr. de Villiers?
Okay, I'm just going to go back to the timetable. I think you said it well, and the thing that's just important to me is that everybody needs to understand the difference between those green lessons and the pink lessons. The green lessons being the online lessons and the pink lessons, the in-class lessons. So if you are at school for the day, a day girl or a boarder, then your online lessons, you can tune into those online lessons from anywhere. So if you are, if you've arrived at school, for instance, if you're a day girl, you put your stuff down, where we'll make space for you to put your stuff down, say in the hall. You move from there, you go to the classroom with some of your friends. There will be a limit for how many girls can be in a classroom, but there's more than enough classroom space. But those classrooms will be available for you in your block for your grade. You go sit down and you can then do your online lesson if you are at school. You could also, if you're a day girl, do that at home before you come to school. And if you're a boarder from your boarding house. But your teacher might say to you for that lesson that you meet each other in a class and let's do it together with the online people at home. But those lessons are optional in the sense in the sense that you don't have to be in a classroom for that actually. The tutorial lessons, those are your 2 lessons that you are expected to be at. So while that's on, so from 11:15 to 1 o'clock every day, there will be no girls in a boarding house or anywhere else across campus. All the girls who are at school on that day will be in class. That's the class that's happening. So if you sign in the morning as a day girl, then we expect you there at class. You can't be anywhere else because that's because your teacher will be waiting there for you. So sorry for repeating that, but I just want to make that very, very clear that we understand that that's where the value is.
Mr. de Villiers,
that's all from my side.
So Mr. de Villiers, the online lessons, the focus is on the screen and everybody who's online, and the tutorial the focus is on the pupils who are actually physically present in the class. But people who are not able to join, for example, if you're over one of the borders in Malawi or wherever, you would be able to possibly just zoom in and listen in on that lesson and chip in and maybe write on the chat, I have a question as well. So it's not like you will be disadvantaged in any way. Everybody can tune in online to everything, but at the same time, we're accommodating all the girls that are actually at school to get physical access to their teachers.
Yes. So to the tutorial lessons, girls arrive there with their needs. The teacher is available to them. The teacher does not come to that lesson with a lesson prepared to teach, because the teacher cannot assume that the online girls are actually with them in that class. So if you are out there and you are unable to come to school yet, you will be expected to show up for every online lesson, but the tutorial lesson is optional for you, because that's the in-person lesson. So you could do your 2 lessons in the morning and then have the rest of the day available to do your work, and then your next online lesson is again at 2 o'clock, if you're sitting, say, for instance, in Malawi, and you can then tune into the tutorials if you like. But the online is the backbone of the curriculum. So the program, the content of the academics is going to only be offered online, so that if you're not in the tutorials, you're not going to fall behind. You're just missing out on an opportunity to engage with your teacher, which if you are able to do that, will be hugely beneficial.
Okay, Mr. De Villiers, can you take us back to the slide with the classroom blocks, please?
Sure.
Good evening, parents. Hi, girls. I've had a few maths problems thrown at me in my time, and I've actually set a few as well myself, but this is probably the one probably the hardest maths problem I've come across in my entire life. And to be quite honest with you, it haven't quite found the exact solution right yet. But what we have got is this. I'm going to try and explain it to you clearly. Okay, so grade 11s, at the moment, you're earmarked to be in no house. Okay, that would be the borders. That would be your home. Okay, and then what the concept is around, every day girl would be in their own house off campus. Okay, those are your private spaces. Okay, the Josie Wood classroom block is where, when the boarders come out of their Noling house, they are expected to socially distance, wear your face mask, and all of those things, the same as the day girls, and it will be your space where you have your lessons, etc. The system allows us then to take from the classroom block, take you as a bubble to your extramural activities. So just be aware that your sport activities are not going to be fixtures or 7-a-side games and that type of thing. It'll be socially distanced. It'll be very much skills based, etc., etc. But this system allows us to get for you to do these extra things. So, and it obviously eliminates as much risk as possible. Okay. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions around that.
Yeah, Mr. Holderness, maybe this is a good time for me to just, and I'm calling on Mrs. Jarvis as well to unmute along so that she could maybe add some thoughts on this. But I realized last night when we spoke to the day girls that we needed to make it a bit more clear, the rationale with the difference between private space and public space. So I'm hoping that I will be able to cast a little bit more light on that. So in your life, going forward this term, you will have spaces which are private and spaces that are public. Your home, where you live here in Grahamstown, if you're a day girl, is your private space. So that's the space where you can go into every day, after school or whatever, and you can take off your face mask and you can be relaxed with your family, because that's your private space. So in that space, the people who are in contact with you, the protocols call them close contacts. So that's a wonderful space to go back to every day after school. When you step out of your house, out of your home, and you go to the shops or to school or anywhere else, then the people you encounter there are not your close contacts, even if they are your best buddy. The neighbors who live next to you, your best friend next door, is not your close contact. They are a public contact. So you can still go for a jog, for instance, with someone, but you know that you have to keep your distance because this is not a close contact. So when you are a boarder, you are going to have the same experience. And this is where the system that we've designed here is very different from anything else that I've seen in any other school so far. Because we have instinctively felt that we need to try as best as we can, and we can't completely simulate home, but as best as we can, create a space for girls who are going to be away from home for 6-8 weeks now, to have some form of private experience where they have close contact. And this is what the boarding house is going to be for them, hopefully as close to that as possible. But boarders, you must understand that when you step out of that boarding house onto the campus, then you enter public space. So then you will see your friends in the grade who are day girls, and you will be able to laugh and joke and chat and go to class together, but you will have to have a distance which is a public spacing distance. And I think if we can just wrap our heads around that, it helps a huge amount to understand what our, sorry, Vicky is getting excited. Then we really understand what our responsibilities are. So you come across a teacher on campus on the way to class. You don't have to run away from the teacher. You can say, morning, Miss Conjura, how are you, Lekker? But you're not going to give her a hug. You're going to have your face mask on. It will be exactly like bumping into her, well, hypothetically bumping into her at the mall, where you can have a chat, but she's not your close contact. And everybody you're coming across will be your public contacts. And I think so. So I think there we're probably going to be surprised at how normal school is going to be, because we're just going to be a little bit further apart from each other. We're going to be mindful of each other, and we're not going to sort of look around for the police policing us all the time, because our main priority then will be the other person. I keep a little bit of distance from you, Mr. Holiness. Say your mantra that you thought out today.
Which one? The step in, step out?
Yes, say it.
This is the only solution I could come up with, really, is that I think for all of us to be back, the step one of getting us back requires both of us to take one step away from each other. And that's kind of where we are at this stage. To get us all back together on the campus, boarders, day girls, the staff, that make that one step. We actually just both have to take a little bit of a step back, and then in a few weeks' time we can take another step forward and then another little step back, and it's just going to be a constant fight to get back to normal life. Yeah. So
Mr. Holiness, you're not saying what I want you to say. You said something profound yesterday. You had this mantra which I loved. Can you remember what you said?
The Dutch word.
In order to step toward each other, we have to take a step back.
That's the one, sir. Correct.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to take care of each other by giving ourselves a little bit of distance. And that's all it is. The rest is doing school and having a lot of fun and learning a lot. Okay, so just to get that right, we are not going to cast day girls into the dark and into the cold and all of that. Day girls, you're going to have access to classrooms that will be equipped and that will be clean and that will be quiet, where you can sit down and do your work and get your online lesson if you want to be at school for the whole day, or do your finish your homework, finish a project, maybe with some of your mates in the classroom, and there will be plenty of space for you to be warm, to be in a quiet space and to work productively. So it's our intention to do that. I know the hall that we mentioned last night that we want to create as a space for you to put your stuff down didn't sound very attractive, but our intention is certainly not that you're locked up in the hall the whole day. It's really a place where you can drop your bag and you're going to pick it up later on when you go to your hockey skills practice, and the rest of the day you do school on the rest of the campus. And that's the space. The big worry or the big discomfort for us is that we cannot at this stage give day girls access to the boarding houses, and that's not because there's any agenda there. It's simply because with this nasty virus, it's the only way we can create a space for the boarders which is more or less like home. Okay, enough preaching from our side about that. Let's march on.
Let me ask the first question to Dr.
Okay, I'm going to unshare the screen.
The question was, will the design center be open, ma'am?
So the design center will not be open because it is based on St. Andrew's College campus. And we've taken the decision between the two schools to keep the two schools separate. That is for your health. Art is in the same boat, but we are going to make plans for you to be able to do that at DSG with your teachers. It might be in a different format. It might be a bit slower. It will not compromise your academic learning, but we'll certainly try and make arrangements. Ms. Steele is on it like you cannot believe, guys. So do not worry about, you cannot go across to design, you cannot go across to art in the same way that the boys are not able to come across and do drama on our side. So there are some sacrifices that boarders and day girls and academics have to take in order to make this work, but it's for your safety, not because we feel like being mean.
College has just moved 200 kilometers from us. And only the teachers are able to do time traveling and get across quickly.
Okay, next question, Mr. De Villiers, is will the Wi-Fi restriction be lifted? How's that going to work? Is there going to be enough for online lessons?
Yes. So we will lift the Wi-Fi restriction so that everybody's got enough bandwidth, but we will be monitoring what you do with that freedom and with that resource, because it's a resource that we have enough capacity for, but it's not a finite resource. So we will be monitoring what girls doing in terms of what they use it for, and if we find that someone is busy downloading movies and things, then we're going to have to come alongside you and say, please, can you turn it down? We don't want to create a situation where we're going to police people for everything. And I really want to ask girls to please come back with that mentality that we really have to come and work together here to get through this time in the best possible way. So it's all about not being selfish, all about being mindful of the rest of us in the community. We're sharing resources that are not that are limited. We have to do things that doesn't come naturally to us. We have to share spaces where we have to be very aware of other people. And I think on the whole, that in itself is a great exercise where we actually forced for our own protection to be focused on the other person's best interest. So the Wi-Fi will be enough. Don't worry about that, but we're not going to allow you to waste it because someone else also needs it.
Okay, then another really good question, Mr. De Villiers, I think you must answer this one, is around do girls have to come back to school? Are we hoping they come back to school? What is our take on that? Yeah.
So we want girls to come back to school, and I really believe that what we are offering them back at school is going to have a lot of value. From the academic point of view, the missing link in traditional schooling is the opportunity to have one-on-one time with teachers. When you're at university, your lectures get offered en masse. So whether you're there or not is not really the issue. But then universities normally have TUT lessons. They call it TUT classes, where you get together in small group, and that's where the real learning takes place. Now, in schools, generally, we don't have the opportunity to do that. And this is maybe why so many people who have high ambitions for academics end up going to extra classes and tutors out there for maths and science and so on, because we just can't offer that small ratio type of education. And this is the opportunity here, is that we're going to really have the opportunity to get into class with teachers in small group, because if you think about it, even if all the girls return, in those tutorial lessons, the boys will not be in that class. That class will be repeated on the other side in another time slot. So already you cut the class in half, or you take the number of boys that are normally in that class out, and not all of us will be able to return. So then the numbers even go further down. So you are guaranteed to be in a small group there, where the teacher doesn't sit there with a lesson plan and to march on. You arrive with your need. And for some girls, that need will be, ma'am, I want to lift this mark from 91 to 98. How do I do it? And for others, it will be, I think I might not pass the subject. Can you help me make it? And I just don't get what you taught me yesterday in the online lesson. Can we please work on it? Absolutely, let's go for it. And that is gold in any school. And I think really that mustn't be underestimated. And then added to that, we get together again. And it will initially be not all of us, but hopefully over time there will be more and more people on campus. And that is definitely part of education, is being together at school and learning, just learning to live like this is already going to be a wonderful learning curve. So all of that is positive. And then in juxtaposition with that is this nasty virus, I almost swore now, that is just a spanner in the works. And we just need to work with that in the equation as well. But the favor that it's doing us one favor. It has kicked us completely out of the box. And I tell you now, it's a wonderful place to be when you are young and still in school and learning about the life that is waiting for all of us, which is going to be very different from what life is now. Anyway, I'm getting too philosophical about it. Next question.
I'm happy to field some of the questions that I've seen. One is about the AS level program in the music school, and the other one is about the August holidays. So at this stage, unless things drastically change, the 5th to the 30th of August is when grade 8s to 11s will be having their holiday. So you'll be getting a decent 3-week break, and hopefully that will sit well with you. The 5th to the 30th of August. In terms of the AS and A level programs, which affects grade 11s and 12s, and I know there are very few girls doing that, we are continuing with the online sessions as we planned. Your teachers, which might not have been clear, your teachers will be doing the moving. They'll be coming to your classes to give you your lessons. So whether you are taught by St. Andrews College teachers or DSG teachers, the teachers will be doing the moving. They will be keeping the physical distancing and taking all the safety precautions, and they'll come to your classroom and they will give you those lessons. So we're continuing with that program. And I know that for Angela, that is a big worry, and the music school as well. Plans are being put in place. Your academics will not be compromised. We are making plans to make it as safe as possible for you. You won't need to take the risks. It'll probably be the staff members who need to be more mindful of certain things. You just need to keep your distance and sanitize and wear your mask. We'll make it happen. In terms of other support classes, we are looking at including those as well. They might be ad hoc, and they might be arranged by your teacher. But you can certainly talk to your teachers at the tutorial sessions about those support sessions. So maths and physical sciences I know are very important to grade 11s. We'll make plans for that. And then I just saw the comment come up now. We're not skipping questions. We're just trying to group questions for people. Yeah. So I'm very aware that Knowling House dorm arrangements are very important, but that doesn't fall into the academic sphere. That's you, Mr. Holdenist.
Yeah, there are a couple here that I can answer for. Is time leave going to be allowed? Unfortunately, girls, that can't happen to keep the integrity of our bubble system. The Knowling girls, the dorm allocations will be done by the house directors as a group, but for logistical purposes, the Knowling girls would keep their dorms. However, there was a good question about the sleeping arrangements. Will there be spacing? We are very aware of the spacing in terms of the 1.5 meters, and those will be adhered to. So if it required a Knowling girl to move to create the space, then she would have to move. But at this stage, that should be fine. The other one was around sleep outs. Ideally, we would probably, to keep integrity, we would limit sleep outs, and initially that would be a no-go until we had, until risk would have to be considered. But initially for the term, it would be no. So keeping that bubble together is the most important thing. Then there's a couple of questions for you, Mr. De Villiers. They're around, do we have any idea of the dates grade 11s could return? And the August holidays are going to be short.
Yeah, we've answered the holiday question. The return date for grade 11s is at this stage we would like for the grade 11s to return just 2 days after the matrics. The matrics are definitely returning on the 8th of July, on the 8th of June, sorry. And that is what the government and the Minister of Education communicated. So that's official. We are working very closely with ISASA, and this afternoon I was in a meeting with ISASA, that's the Independent Schools Association, and they work with all the independent schools, headmasters and headmistresses at this stage. And the big question that we are waiting for from ISASA, or the big answer, is whether we are able to return other grades as well. Because the Minister of Education in her last briefing made a side comment after her actual presentation that said that should schools be able to show that they can do the distancing and that they have enough space to distance pupils, then it shouldn't matter what grades they're bringing in. But for the government schools, most government schools, they are not seeing that possible unless they first start with grade 12 and 7. So at this stage, officially from the Department of Education, only grade 12s and grade 7s have a definite date that they can come back, and that's the 1st of July for the country. But for us, it's the 8th. The reason why it's the 8th is because we always knew that once we get that date, that the schools will be opened, we will have to give our teachers a time to rest, and you actually, before we change gear and everybody's on campus and we then go and continue and finish the next term. You can't come back one day and then 7 days later start our half term. That's a little silly. So for now, we would hope to bring the grade 11s back shortly after the matrics, but that date isn't a confirmed date. It's an intended date. I am expecting to get a go-ahead from ISASA and the DBE within the next day or two, because on our meeting today with ISASA, the other schools that were on there, most of the other schools were very, very stressed about it because they are planning to start on the 1st of June. If you think of day schools out there, in Gauteng and so on, they want to start on the 1st of June, and they still don't know whether they can bring back other grades. So we are sort of a week after them, so we've got a little bit of time, and I think we will have our answer very, very soon, definitely still in this week. And if that answer is yes, we are on for, what was that exact date, Dr. Gens?
The exact date, the 12th.
Yeah, so travel day would be the 11th for grade 11s, and the 12th would be when we start.
And Mr. De Villiers, a really good follow-up question there is, do we have any idea of the number of girls who are planning on returning? Do you want to just maybe go through what's going on in the next few days?
Yeah, at this stage we are trying to gauge the sort of the sense out there. So in these meetings we try to read your faces. So keep staring into the screen. We're busy surveying your emotional expressions to see how listy you're looking for school. But the answer is actually we have no idea how many people will come back. We're hoping that you are just waiting to come, because we are so ready for you. It's not even funny. But we know that many people have got practical reasons why they can't come immediately. Many of our overboarded people have not got answers yet. There are also people who are looking at the situation more holistically, and it might be that in your family you feel that you just don't have the risk appetite at this stage to leave home. So it's not about the school's preparation, it's about taking that leap to leave home actually and go out there. So it's a long way of saying we don't know. I'm really hoping that we will be pleasantly surprised, because the more people come, the more authentically we can do school. We are going to send out a survey tomorrow to ask parents to give us an indication of whether they are planning to send their children back. It's not a contract, so if you say yes I am and you don't do it, we still be friends. But we would love to get an indication of the sort of numbers that we are going to get. So please wait for that survey, and then pinch your parents, turn that rubber arm and let them say yes.
It will really help.
Sorry, Mr. De Villiers, it's obviously been a long day. the 10th of June is the date. It's 2 days after. So I can't add 2 to 8. I get to 12 in my head. I don't know why. 10th of June is the predicted date that we were looking at. So just to clarify.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've got a question from Mrs. Jarvis. It's about the wellness. It's around the overborder students who come back at the beginning of the second term, or come into the bubble later. Can they come back at any point, or do we have to do they have to be quarantined?
So the bottom line is that girls can come back at any stage into the bubble. So, I mean, the overborder girls are based on when they will be allowed to travel, and then also some stricter regulations from the government. But if girls in South Africa don't come back now, but choose to come back later, we would require from them exactly what we are requiring from the girls now, is that they undertake a 14-day isolation period where they don't spend time in the malls and don't visit their friends, and just stay at home to really look after their own health, to make sure that they're in a healthy place. And then if they come, they would be allowed to, barring passing our screening as they come onto campus, be allowed straight into the bubble. The girls from across the border may then be subject to actual official quarantine, and that will be based on the government. So people coming from across the border at the moment have to do a mandatory 14-day self-isolation period. And DSG is prepared for that. We have a site at the school. So if the girls come back, we're not going to say they have to go and find their own place to isolate. They would come to campus. We would then isolate them, but they would still have access to Wi-Fi, be able to do their online learning. We would keep them comfortable, check them out for those 14 days, and after that period is finished, they would join their grade bubble.
Okay,
I just wanted to say another thing, because I know in terms of being the psychologist, how anxiety-provoking dorm rooms are. So girls, we really don't want to gloss over that at all, because yeah, it's anxiety-provoking enough when you're in your own houses and you're getting roommates each term. So whichever house you're going into, depending on the numbers and the number of rooms we've got, the first thing we're going to do is obviously try and put everybody into an individual room. Only if the numbers get bigger will we start sharing up. So if you were already in a room with another girl, but there's an empty room next door, you will each get your own rooms. As more girls come into boarding, we would start to group you, and you'll be able to have a say. Already today, the house directors were saying, you know, that whoever's house you're going into, all your house directors will have a look at that placing. They know you well. We probably try and keep each house closer together, so the grade 11s in Merriman closer together with their friends. But you will be able to, because you're in the bubble and the number of girls, interact with all of them. You don't have to stay stuck just to your Merriman girls. You could be sleeping next door to Merriman girls, but a Noling girl on the other side. And so we will very much take those concerns into consideration. And your house directors will be having a say. It won't be somebody who doesn't know you just randomly putting you into rooms.
And I think on the same note, there's a good question here, how the girls in other houses are going to get their belongings. So the first step is really Espen, because the grade 12s are going to be coming in first. That house will be boxed up by the house mothers, with obviously good communication around that. And then from there on, when the grade 11s come in, you'll be allowed to you'll be able to go to your spaces, pack them up, and bring your stuff to Noling itself. So you'll be doing the packing of your spaces at this stage yourselves, but obviously the girls in Espen, Mrs. Flanagan will be in contact with you around your particular belongings.
And then on that same note, the Noling house, grade 8, 9, whatever there is left in the house, will be boxed up to be taken to the next house. So yeah, and any overboarders that can't be there to pack up their rooms, we will do that for you. It's not going to be an ad hoc process. It's a very cleverly thought out boxed plan by Mr. Holderness.
But there will
and I
be
can just say, sorry,
just
it's fine.
yeah, just add on that. your house director will be in contact with you before anything is moved or dealt with. So don't stress around that. Just be in contact with them, please. Thank you.
Yeah, we've discussed today the issue of your privacy, and we are very mindful and respectful of that. So where it is absolutely possible, where it's in any way possible, we would like you to do it yourself. So for day girls, for instance, if you have some belongings in the houses and so on, but it will not be possible for many girls. And there we will, that packing up is going to be done by house staff. It's not going to be done by support staff or any random person out who's not sort of in our fold. It's going to be done by house directors, assistant house directors, house mothers, and people who you know, and it will be done by people at least in pairs, so that we are keeping the integrity and the respect for your belongings as our highest priority.
Mr. Holderness and Mr. de Villiers, the what are we going to wear when we're back at school question has come back. Is it uniform? Is it civvies? Is it a combination? I wonder if we can address that.
Yes, now I have that problem every morning. So much clothes and nothing to wear. So we're going to try to be really practical about it. Sorry for the girls who heard this last night. So I'm not going to give you a rule at this stage. We are going to try and be practical and say, okay, what is at your disposal? So we need to look at your wardrobe, as it were, as a resource from which we can draw to keep you warm, to stay practical. So we are seeing that in that wardrobe is some winter uniform, there are tracksuits, and then you've got some civvies as well. So we are going to try and do a combination of the three as we go along. We haven't coined it yet, and in fact, I thought last night we should maybe involve some of the girls to give us ideas. So if we want to involve civvies, for instance, for one day a week or so, to just help you, have enough clothes to wear, because you have to have a more sort of regular turnaround. And to get creative ideas about how we can manage that. So we can all dress purple on one day and yellow on another day, or so on. We don't want to turn it into a funny dress exercise. We're also very mindful that if we bring civvies into the equation, that we don't put pressure on you to feel that you have to look like you're walking out of a boutique, and that you are under that kind of pressure in terms of appearance. And that's our challenge. I think our biggest challenge is if we want to include civvies, how do we do it in a sensitive way that won't put undue pressure on you? We certainly don't want you to hit the shops now and go and spend thousands on what you're going to wear to school. But we also don't want girls to arrive at school looking like they've just rolled out of the washing bin. So it's a balance, and we will work with you in that sense. But I promise you will have something to wear. You will know what to wear. And I think your tracksuit's going to probably be your best buddy, but we'll get there in more detail later on. So please bear with us. It's a tough nut to crack, this one.
He's talked against?
You can see we're talking to each other. Olivia Davison has posted the same question twice. I think she's very eager to know how long this bubble system will stay in place. And on the back of that, there are some permit questions about rumors of permits being cancelled for overboarders. I think we need to allay those fears, please.
Yes. So for the duration of the bubble system, you'll just have to give me a time. I'm just going to quickly get my crystal ball. Yeah. Sorry, I've lost it, like my marbles. We just don't know. We hope it's going to be a surprisingly short period of time, and our intention is certainly to arrive at that day when we can say, okay, we have now reached the level where we know that it's safe enough for us to reintegrate everybody and to break up the bubble system. It might happen at that stage that you decide that you don't want to go back to your old boarding house because having a sleepover with your grade has been too much fun. But we really don't know, girls, and I'm sorry about that. That's just the nature of the game at this stage. We have to start conservatively, and we have to monitor all the time. So for that, we are advised by our medical team They are amazing people. They, many of them were actually DSG girls. Most of them are parents currently, so they really understand our school and our culture, our medical team. It's not just a random medical team of people. So they know what's important to us and how we would like to do school. And they will try and give us the go-ahead as soon as it is safe to reconfigure the whole thing. The issue around permits and for over-border people is really a difficult one. We have a few people here at admin who are on the phones every day to try and find the information that we need around permits. I've seen some documentation from different governments in neighboring countries. And it's really a bit of a nightmare at the moment because some information is unofficial, some is official. It's very difficult to discern what is really official and what we can share on. And we're very careful at this stage that we don't share information that's actually not real. So the onus to find out rests largely with parents, with us trying to help as much as we can. Because it's a two-way thing. There's the regulations by the South African government, and at the moment, as far as I know, no flights over border flights are allowed. I think in level 3 that might change, but then there's the country you're coming from that has their own issue. What we know is that we are ready to supply parents with whatever they need. And it might be a letter from the school confirming that your daughter's enrolled here and in boarding and need to get back on a certain date for education, and we will supply that to all parents as they need it. We will share the information we get when we know that it's actually authentic. But we are also asking parents, please, if you do have information that we can trust, that you share that with us so that we can distribute it.
Mr. De Villiers, on the back of that, there's the traveling across provincial borders permits. If lockdown level 3 happens, we are allowed to travel across those borders, and we're happy to provide you with any documentation that you need in order to prove that you're going back there. And then there was another question I've just forgotten. I'm trying to remember them all.
So Mr. Jobs can answer this one.
It was travel days on the 10th of June, preliminary now, based on the information we have, which is exactly 2 weeks away. So we will let you know as soon as we know. And if we have to shift that day by a day or so that you can undergo your 12, how many days? 2 weeks isolation, 14 days. I'm really struggling with the maths now, Mr. Holderness. I'm really sorry. Then we'll take that into account. We're very aware that this is tight, but we can't make plans that we have no legality for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but the reason why we've actually making that unofficial date known is so that girls can do that 2 week of more conservative exposure and be conservative in terms of the isolation. So you must please behave from today as if you are going to come to school on that date. It's very likely that it's going to be that, but we can't confirm it yet.
So the travel across the provinces, if you're returning to school, that is, you are allowed to come back to school across the provinces. So we'll provide you with what you need for that. And then I don't know if this is the prime opportunity to perhaps talk about transport back to school, because there's some questions about buses and planes and all the rest.
Yes, so we're also trying to address that as far as we can to help parents. And normally it's the parents' own responsibility to get their children here, and that's understandable. But we understand with this risk, we would like to do whatever we can to help all of us to get you here, to get the girls here safely. So we're looking at options for making options available to parents for getting back, and that's going to be either and by bus. So we have done quotes and asked around. So we have secured luxury buses that we can book for girls to come from major centre like Cape Town and Johannesburg. And the idea there is that we would be able to provide a transport that is safe and that is comfortable and for a long journey, so that you don't have to be compromised on the way here. We are also, together with college, trying to talk to service providers of charter flights, and that will only be from Johannesburg, as I understand at this stage. I'm not sure about the Cape Town leg. But I spoke to Mr. Thompson earlier, and he's in negotiation with service providers there. The problem with the flight as opposed to the bus is that with the flight we have to fill the seats. So there's a capacity of the flight, and because it's so expensive, the challenge is to make sure that we have that flight filled to capacity. That would be the easiest if we could fill a flight. And the challenge for us, of course, is that we need to keep girls in grades as far as possible. But for the bus, we have a little bit more flexibility. So in our survey, we will ask those questions as well, as to what your intentions are. Are you planning to return your girls? Would you prefer to do that with your own private transport, or would you be interested in if we could provide you with transport that we arrange? So we'll ask for that and see how that comes out.
Mr. Jarvis, I think you're the specialist in this in terms of wellness. The face masks. Just there's a couple of questions on face masks. Should they bring disposable ones, the cloth ones? How many? Could you just maybe let everyone know around about that?
Okay. Yeah, girls. So we are asking you to come back to school with a minimum of 3 face masks, cloth face masks. Please, we don't want to be buying mountains of the disposable ones. We need to keep those for our people on the front line, the healthcare people. So definitely not disposable ones. We want you to come back with cloth masks. If you've already got your own, please bring them, as many as you have got, but we want everybody to have a minimum of 3. There are some at DSG available for you to buy. So if you haven't got 3, you don't have to feel like you have to go around and source these. You can get them from us, and we're selling them for 35 Rand, so they're not expensive either. And yeah, there'll be a whole protocol around those. You will wear a clean face mask every single day. You're going to be asked to come back with some kind of container, so like a plastic ice cream tub, so that if you take your face mask off during the day, so especially the boarders in the boarding house, you're not just taking it off and leaving it lying on a table or somewhere in the kitchen. If your face mask comes off, it goes into that container, so that if you're going back out into public spaces, you can put it back on. But at the end of the day, all the used face masks from that day will get cleaned in the boarding house. So all face masks must also be marked, because you don't want to be sharing these with anyone. So come back with your face masks marked. If you lose some along the way or something goes wrong, there will be more available at school for you to purchase.
Mr. Holderness, there's quite a couple of questions around weekend activities, and I am getting to your question, Delphina, don't worry. You don't need to post it again. Weekend activities, weekends, restricted visits, parent visits over weekends for the boarders. Can you perhaps shed some light on what we've got planned? We've got exciting things planned.
Well, we haven't planned things yet. In fact, I think my Wi-Fi is going. Obviously, there will be. What we are going to try and do is have sports. And someone asked a question about outdoor sport. We will have some outdoor sports as well during Saturdays to keep the girls busy. It won't be, like I said, it will be socially distanced, and you'll be doing skills, etc. But I think it's the girls are going to, we're going to look at things like maybe movie nights together in grades, braais. But I think it's really going to be the girls being together after this amount of time. They're going to end up just socializing and spending time together. But we will try and look to put on events, of course. But I think just the space on the Sunday to rest and recuperate is probably what they'll need. So they'll end up, I don't know, sitting outside, going to the fields, chatting, yeah, we'll find things to do, but we also want to give them time to rest after quite a grueling week of online learning and obviously tutorial learning, and they would have had a busy time, so they'll probably want to rest.
And then
The
specific rules and regulations with regards to ordering in of takeout. I mean, Debonair's is quite comfortably probably the best paid takeaway service in Grahamstown at this stage, as well as is the gym or the pool open?
Okay, so at this stage, the gym and the pool are closed, and those we can only open based on regulations from government and stuff and things like that. At this stage, takeouts we're not going to allow. That's also going to be cut off. But we are looking at ways of getting the kitchen to produce pizzas and that on campus, maybe having an on-campus shop. And we are sort of finding ways to bridge those gaps, but all in the process at this stage. But we do understand the need for some activity and for access to those kind of ways of getting to the pick and pay, or if it's through a delivery of some sort, or having the on-campus shop open to certain grades on certain days. But we will bridge that gap.
Now, we're very aware that's a bit of a bummer, and with the deliveries, everything that we don't allow is governed by our risk that we calculated. So we're asking experts, should we do this or not? And it might be that at some stage we can allow that, hopefully sooner rather than later. But we're certainly not going to put your appetite for a pizza over your safety.
Ms. Jarvis, I wonder if you can maybe shed some light on this. There's some very specific questions. Some of our girls are concerned they're going to get nice braids done now, and then they're going to come back to school, and then it's going to be a long time before they can get their braids done again. What are the regulations around that? And I imagine it depends on what level of lockdown we are and where the hairdressers and other people like that would be accessible. Can you please answer that, especially for Delphina?
I see that Delphina looked like she was asking, was she going to get into trouble for the braids that she currently has because they're not the right color? I think that's what I read a little bit earlier. So
okay.
The problem is at the moment that no hairdressers are actually allowed to be open. So Mr. de Villiers, maybe as the boss, you can comment, will she be in trouble for her braids?
I hate that word. Not braids, boss. No, we need to be reasonable here. And again, I want to come back to that. We have to buy into an environment and a community of trust. So, for me, the whole issue around appearances and hair and everything like that over my whole teaching career was all about values. So the way you decide to wear your hair or braid your hair or whatever, I'm always looking and thinking, okay, what does that say to me? Does that say, look at me, I want to attract attention to myself? Or does it say, look at me, I'm understated, I'm not over aware of myself, I don't need to be the center of the universe, and that's the thing. But we are not going to be unreasonable. So if your reality is that you are not able at this stage to get your hair within our normal rules, then we need to engage with you about it and say, okay, we get it. This was your situation. But I'm asking you to take into consideration what you can and can't do, and we're not going to be draconic about it. But it's not an opportunity for people to push a boundary that doesn't need to be pushed. I think let's just keep it real and try and be unselfish about it. So that's all I'm going to say at this stage.
Mr. de Villiers, quite an important question. I think it's a Pinto family that's posed it. Over borders, coming back, and then what happens if we go into lockdown level 5? What is our plan there?
Yeah, I think our plan there is very similar to what happened in March. So it's unlikely that a situation like that will be announced sort of overnight. You would normally have a reasonable time to respond to that, and we would also most likely see it coming, and therefore we should be able to respond to that. In March, it jumped on us really very unexpectedly. I mean, we were still in a completely different realm if you think of it. So the word lockdown wasn't even in my vocabulary in March when the president announced back then that schools are going to be closed. It was before the lockdown, if you can remember. And we were able to evacuate the school literally within hours. It was 48 hours of quick movement, and we are geared for that. So and quite interestingly, to those parents who are wondering about this, the school travel office that we have at the moment is just unbelievable in how efficient they are. And the reason that travel office was set up a few years ago was so that we are able to respond to any form of emergency and able to evacuate girls quickly. And that's the strategy at this stage. But if it happens for some other reason that we are painted into a corner, then I think DSG is a very safe place to be. It might be that you get homesick, but we're going to keep you safe.
And Mr. de Villiers also, I mean, we've had an over...
Ms. Jarvis, I think you've disappeared.
Sorry, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I wanted to say as well, we have had an overwhelming response from locals saying that if by any chance things did change and girls couldn't get home or even couldn't get home over holiday periods, they would open their homes most generously to take our girls in. We've been overwhelmed by the number of people that have been saying that. So whichever way we go, we promise the girls will be well looked after.
Thank you for mentioning that. About that.
So there are 4 more questions that I've picked up that haven't been answered at all in this. So cleaning and support staff, what strategy do we have in place for that? Exactly the same strategy that we have for everybody else who is coming onto that campus, a daily screening, their own safety measures, the catering staff, the cleaning staff, they all have their own protocols that they follow with the best interest of safety in mind, and social distancing, physical distancing, and cleaning staff are often in the houses when the girls aren't, so that it can be done in a short space of time. The catering staff have their protocols as well. So we've thought of that. It's covered, and you needn't worry. They're as safe as a staff member, a teacher coming in.
No, and I can also add to that people are getting trained. So there's really a very formal training that our service staff are receiving. And Ms. Giles, I know what you're going to say, so please say.
I was also going to say that all our support staff are also working in very small bubbles and have been allocated to very specific areas. So it's not like one day they'll be working here and one day they'll be working somewhere else. So we're going to track their movements. The teams have been kept small. The teams are kept to certain places on the campus. So please be assured that there are very strict protocols around all of that.
Mr. Holderness, here's one for you, and you've been waiting for this question. I'm not going to know that the second part is the question. So can day girls visit boarders? And I imagine that they can, but not in the boarding house. And then the other one is, if someone gets corona, what is the plan?
I'll leave that to Mrs. Jarvis. What I think it's a really good question, that one about day girls visiting the borders over the weekends. And to be honest, like, I hadn't really put my mind to it. I've read that question a few times now. Obviously, to come onto campus, there's screening. So you'll have to come during screening times. And obviously the boarding house, you won't be allowed into the boarding house. So it'll have to be in a public space. And obviously we want to encourage as many day girl border relationships as possible in that space where you're socially distancing. I will put a little bit more thought to it, but I really think it's a really good question. I'm going to put my mind to it over sort of tonight, and I'll have a firm answer tomorrow of how that would work. But I think we must make that happen. So yeah.
I love this kind of question because it's the question that stretches us to find the next solution. So thank you for that question. Very important answer from Mrs. Jarvis now.
Can you just remind me what I was answering? What the question was?
The information is all in our health protocol, ma'am. But the question was, what happens when someone tests positive?
Okay, so I mean that is where we have our strictest protocols and all of that. So everybody, both day girls and boarders, will be trained in terms of that. And I think what we have to realize is that we are going to see a lot of illness on campus. We are about to go into winter, which is flu season. We also just have the rains. We've got the pollens and all of those things, everything falling. So we're expecting the sinusitis, all of those kinds of things. And so the first time a girl gets sick, we're not all going to panic and think this is now an outbreak of coronavirus. So we have very strict protocols in terms of what will happen. So if somebody fails a screening, red flags come up as a screening. There are strict things to do, but if a child also starts to feel sick during the day, the same thing will happen. So our SAN is a protected space. Nobody can just go to the SAN at any time they want. So if a boarder is feeling sick, she has to alert the person on duty. If there is any suspicion about potential COVID-19, we will have isolation rooms in the boarding houses where the girl will go while the house mother or whoever's on duty phones the SAN around the next step, so that the SAN and that is ready to get the girl, where they will be properly assessed. And in some cases, it'll be ruled out either by the SAN sisters or otherwise with consulting doctors. And if they are not, there's no suspicion of COVID, they would then just go into the normal SAN and get treated. If there is any suspicion, we will obviously follow the protocols around testing. There is a safe space where the girls will be nursed while we're waiting for the results. If the results are negative, obviously, if they are well, they will join their boarding house again. If they are still sick, they will go into the SAN where they will be nursed by our SAN sisters. And if they test positive, there is a whole protocol, but we have a separate place, which is the isolation. So while they're waiting their results, they will be in a quarantine section on our campus. And if they test positive, they would then go into isolation. But you also need to understand that at any part of this process, if your daughter is along the way and you as a parent can get to them, the first prize is that you can take your daughter and be involved in the process. So if a child gets sick, we're not going to keep them away from their parents. But if their parents can't get to them, they are going to be very well looked after. And really, we are hoping that if somebody does get sick, it's going to be like most of the children that have had this, that they're going to have very mild symptoms. We have to just treat them and manage them for that 14-day period. They'll be able to bring their schoolwork, carry on. They'll have access to Wi-Fi. And after 14 days from the symptoms, as long as they're symptom-free, they would be allowed to rejoin their bubble again. And the same with the day girls. If they got sick on campus during the day, there's a special isolation place that they would go to where they would be looked after, waiting for their parents to come and fetch them. And if there was any suspicion, we would be advising around them having to be tested. If parents don't want to test them and they're not really sick, we would insist on the mandatory 14 days before that they would be allowed to come back to school. If they wanted to come back to school earlier, they would have to go and see their doctor and would have to be signed off to say this is definitely not a COVID infection and we are happy for the girl to come back. If they don't get that letter, it would be 14 days off school before they would be allowed to come back.
Thank you. That was a very, very useful answer. And that answer is also in our wellness protocol that we emailed out to parents.
I've got a couple of questions. There are 5 more questions and they'll keep coming, I imagine. The first one is related to the second. One is, we're heading into the peak of the virus and shouldn't we wait until term 3 before opening our boarding? And similarly, unions, are we affected by unions who are pushing for a 3-month school closure before starting? So it's about delay of starting school.
Yeah, thank you. The delays. There is a school of thought that feels that we should ideally wait and see what happens. But the reality is that schools are open by law. So the Department of Education has instructed all schools in South Africa to open from the 1st of June at this stage for grade 12 and 7. And therefore, if you are enrolled in as a scholar, you have to have a school to go to. We can't just say no. We kind of can get away with it by saying, well, we've taken our school online now, but that is actually not really officially acceptable. We have to open the school for those who want to access it. So that's the first thing. That's why we are saying to parents, you can make the call now. And so we are not putting pressure on anyone to return to school. We are making it possible for you to opt for continuing your schooling online. And I think that's the answer. So there's really no pressure there. We are encouraging you because we've read the research, and we're keeping abreast of what the knowledge is out there at the moment. But ultimately, it is the responsibility for each individual family to make that decision based on all the factors that play a role in their lives, and it's different for every other family. The other half of the question was about
the unions and
yes.
if they influence us.
Yeah. So there's been a lot written about this, and we are all aware of that. So our teaching staff are not unionized, so they are not directly influenced by that. But we are indirectly influenced by the unions in the sense that they have an impact on the government's decision making. So the delay for the Minister of Education, for instance, for talking to us for such a long time, had a lot to do with negotiating with unions. And of course, they negotiate on behalf of the teachers who belong to them. Not their first priority is not the best interest of the children; it's the best interest of the teachers who belong to those unions. So if the unions manage to force the arm of the government, of the Department of Education, then that might impact on us in an indirect way. A typical example of that is the starting date for reopening of schools. And I must be honest, for myself, until the minister spoke to us the last time, I was convinced that the starting date would be later than the 1st of June because of the unions. And I am of the opinion, and this is not factual, it's my opinion, that the 1st of June was still in place because of the urgency of the matric exam. Because if you just keep kicking that can down the road, then there will come a tipping point where government matriculants just won't have enough time to write the exams on time, and then you have to postpone them into January or December or so on. So yeah, I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but we're not completely hedged against the unions, but they definitely don't have a direct bearing on us.
Okay, and these questions keep coming. So I'll answer, can we see our brothers at college? Unfortunately, no, not initially, while our bubbles are completely separate. You'll have to Zoom. And then on the same tack, support classes that were offered at college, they will come to you now. Those support classes will come to you if we organize them and how we organize them. Those teachers will come to you. And then a question about how many confirmed cases there are in Grahamstown. I read an article this evening, and I stand to be corrected. 5 cases in Grahamstown, 4 of which have been fully recovered. The first one was back in March, 2 EMS workers and 1 other case. And today, 1 other person tested positive and is in isolation, and they've done the close contact tracing already. So 5 as far as I know, if anybody wishes to correct that. And then we've got for Ms. Jarvis again. Please can you spell out the procedures for screening for staff, day girls, and anybody entering our campus that is not a boarder, and possibly a boarder screening?
Yeah. So the screening is the same for everybody. We have developed, it's about to come out, an online app. So everybody that's coming onto our campus, whether they're staff, day girls, contractors, visitors, because it's an app that they can link into, anybody that wants to step onto our campus has to follow, fill in the checklist. So, and it's the same checklist. It's the checklist that doctors are filling in that go in and work in hospitals. So we're going on the same symptoms. So everybody in the morning before they come onto campus will fill that in. It's a register also of who is coming onto campus. They will then, so the boarders will get screened in their boarding houses. They will go, obviously fill in their checklist and go and get their temperatures taken. The person who's taking their temperature, everybody will get a code. And so their code will go in, and as their temperature gets taken, it will link into that checklist so that any red flags will come up. And it's the same with anybody coming onto campus. They will have filled in the online app, but then they will go to the centralized screening point. At the moment, we've got one where everybody has to check in, but as we go to bigger numbers, there's going to be one at the junior school and one at the senior school, where you will have your temperatures screened. And that is why also when we look at day girls coming to visit the boarders over the weekend, we absolutely will love that, but it's not that it's just free for all. They would have to come through a screening process to come onto the campus. So there would have to be times around, you would have to come at this time while the screening center is open. And obviously we have to have staff manning those, so they're going to be manning them for long hours during the week. So we would like to cut down on some of those hours to give some people some time off over the weekend, but there will definitely be able to be some access. But whenever you come onto a campus, you will have to be properly screened.
Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. There's Mr. de Villiers, this is one for you. Actually, it's probably two-pronged, one from a border approach and one from a day girl approach. Will I get a reduction in my fees if I stay at home? Or if I choose to stay at home, will I still have to pay for boarding, or can I just pay for storing my stuff?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The council is the entity who deals with this, and the financial committee of the council. So they have communicated this issue with parents from the beginning, and there are a couple of things that were put in place. So to achieve a scenario where we are able to credit parents as far as is possible. So in principle, the principle that is being followed is that the accounts are sent out in advance, and that the credits are then following in arrears, and halfway through May, the credits that were actually due by the end of May were actually passed on. So parents will know that they got a statement not long ago, around the middle of the month, which had the credit on there. So that question is really already answered. It's of course an opinion of all of us, each individual, of what that reduction should be. And some people are of the opinion that it should be a very bigger reduction. Others feel that it shouldn't. And the reasons for those are different for different people. So at this stage, the reduction in boarding fees are pegged against what the savings have been for not having boarders here, plus a whole number of sacrifices that the school had made. We have gone and revisited our budgets. The staff have taken some sacrifices in their salaries, and we have tried to save as far as we possibly can, and we passed on those savings and sacrifices onto the credit for the parents. So for boarders, there was a percentage credit that we were able to pass on for May, and for all day girls and boarders, we have also reversed the levies that we normally charge for the development levy and the sports levy. So per month, that sports levy is reversed as we go into this crisis. So we don't know for how many months that will happen, but as long as this is a situation, that will be in place. It's a complicated thing to negotiate, and we are really trying our very best to offer parents the best quality of schooling that we can under these circumstances, and to do that within reason. So the decision going forward, now that schools are open, to come to school or not, is one that is with every family, and that is in principle a voluntary decision. It's based on circumstances which we have a lot of respect for, but we are operating the school, and that facility is available for people who are enrolled in the school and paying their fees.
Mr. de Villiers, I didn't see any others on the chat, Mr. Holderness. I don't know if you've been tracking and seeing if we've covered everything. I've been ticking off as we go.
I think
Or if we'd like to open the floor for comments.
Okay, I think we need to start coming for the landing. We've been here, it's almost 9 o'clock. I think girls are keen to get to bed, no doubt. I've got school day ahead of them tomorrow. So let's not keep them awake for too long. So I would just want to say, I see Mrs. Flanagan is definitely ready for bed. But she did a COVID yawn, so that was a safe yawn, Mrs. Flanagan. But I feel your pain.
I see the detox are already.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Maybe I should do that next, eh? That's the spirit. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who came tonight to sit with us and to work through all of this. There might be a question that you still have unanswered. If you have that, please email it to us. I get a lot of emails every day with lots of questions. So parents, if you send in a question and we haven't answered it yet, reply to that. I apologize. We're trying to get through every day. But we are trying our best, and we thank you for the support that we have from parents. This has really been an amazing exercise in what community is all about, and it's quite amazing that we can be such a united and tight community and spread out over almost an entire continent and beyond. So thank you for that support, and God bless all of you. So we're looking forward to seeing you hopefully just after the 10th, 11th of June, girls. Thank you very much. And thanks to the staff. Huge shout out to the staff.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sleep well.
Find this thing.